All right, welcome everybody to Permaculture Smackdown. I don't know what episode we're on, 13 or 16, something like that. Sorry for the delay in starting, but Paul has the sheriffs and the fire department or Forest Service over at his place right now because they're in stage 1 of evacuation for a fire or something like that. Anyway, he says he'll be on in just a couple moments to share that experience with you. That is the Shire set behind me. Yep. There you go. So so actually, from what I understand, this is in New Zealand, and all of these buildings are actually white, and they did that so that they could they could do graphics like you're seeing behind me, a green screen, so they could put whatever they wanted on there. So actually, these are white, and that's all colored in instead of the buildings actually being painted and such. From what I understand, let me see if I can. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to share a screen with you guys here. So from what I understand, this is actually what the buildings look like. I don't even know if there's actual doors in them. But here's another one. That one's got a door. Or maybe that's just early development and I'm just totally wrong. Maybe there's some nerds out there that know better than I. But anyway. I've already got Q&A coming in. What do we got here? Yes, that's the Shire behind me. Okay, Sue says, I'm a Kiwi, and now it's open to the public, so I guess not white anymore. Yeah, maybe it was just white for the movie filming. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. Especially Paul's big into Wofati, so I thought he'd get a kick out of that. All right. Yeah, Dan, we're at the Shire. So today we're going to be continuing our discussion on community, and while we wait for Paul, I thought I'd just introduce you to something we've been working on. Let me pull it up here real quick. Now, we're still in development, so don't get too excited. But we do hope to release fairly soon. This is the ThriveThrough community backend, and actually you're seeing the staff forms there. And as you can see, there's no posts in any of this yet because we're just starting it. And the staff members, you can go staff here. We can see all of them. Here's everybody working on it. And yeah, we're just getting it going, but I'm really excited. So I'll just introduce you to a couple things here. First, we have the forums, and we have the lab. So the lab is where we'll be, it's a collaborative area for everybody within the community to work on writing articles, doing full-on courses, building those up, micro courses, quick wins. So maybe you have an idea for a course, you could put that in there, or maybe you have some curriculum, but you don't want to be on video, you put that in. So it's a way to collaborate with everybody to create courses. And the whole point of this is building community, either teams, what we call Thrive teams, which would be like a prepper kind of team where you have certain individuals, maybe all across the country, but when the shit hits the fan or when you just want to get together, the group gets together and they each have like a specialty that they work in and plans on how to get together, things like that. We also have Thrive neighborhoods, and that's all about building community within your existing neighborhood. And then Thrive intentional communities, which is about creating actual intentional communities. And we hope to begin launching those in the near future, or at least within the next couple of years, an actual intentional community to start with and to build on and to share all the experiences with, and how we do all the governance, things like that. And of course, there'll be discussions in there for all that. Activity is just to see recent activity and stuff. Here we have circles. So circles can be pretty much, it's groups. It could be a group of whatever you want. So it could be your ThriveThrough team. It could be your intentional community, your neighborhood is in this circle, or it's also for courses. So as you can see here, we have the 2 courses now. So this would be like, you could think of it as like a Facebook group. And so the Permaculture Designer Certification group, students and alumni have their own circle. Pastoral Greenhouse course guys have their own circle. And of course, all the courses will be in there with their own circles, and all the students that are in those courses will be invited to those circles. And these circles give you, so let's say you wanted to create your own circle, and this is a new one you created. You can manage your circle. You can add a topic section of whatever topics you want to discuss, like that'd be a forum basically. You can add a calendar. So if you have special events going on, you can create a calendar for your circle, and everybody can see what's on that calendar and what events are coming up. We have columns, so that's for articles. So basically, if you are into writing articles, you would create your own column and would call it whatever you want and write your articles. And of course, back in the forums, you could collaborate with others on your articles. Images is just photo albums, so you can create different photo albums for your circle. Files, and we'll get to that in just a little bit, but that'd be so you could share files, PDFs or whatever with your circle. Links, so you can generate links for people to look at that are related to the circle. And of course, people can, if you want, you can have them upvoted, downvoted, ranked, however you want to do that. And adverts, that is for the barter blanket, which we'll get to in just a moment. So columns. So that was just within each circle, right? If you're creating your own circle, you have all that. Now we also have all the columns. So this doesn't have to be circle columns. It can be any column. If you're not in a circle or creating a circle, you can just create a column if you're a writer, and post your articles in there. And of course, that'll all be populated. Brink of Freedom is all getting migrated over to this. So all the writers from Brink of Freedom will be in there with their own columns and their own articles. The old articles from Brink of Freedom will be in there, as well as new ones that they're writing. We have, here's the links directory. Like I said, we haven't, it's just new category right now. So it'll be categories of links, and then you can submit links within a category, and you just give it a title, a tag, the URL, a description, and you can get notified when anybody comments on it, and posts can be created. Hey, it's Paul.
Hey, look at that. What the hell is that? Submit a new link.
All right. Well, I'll share more with you guys on that later. Paul's finally here. Man, you look red in the face.
What is that, a green screen?
Yeah, of course. I'm not sitting in Hobbitville right now.
Oh, man. The Shire. Yeah, yeah.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Hey, Fred's here.
We had the sheriff and the fire guy, the fire in charge guy. I don't know what he is, but there's a forest fire, you know, several miles away, and we are officially put on the status of stage 1 freak out. Yeah, and so
everybody's like getting buckets of water and dumping it on their houses at Ant Village, and
well, about an hour ago, we had a crew of like 6 guys show up, and they want to start doing basically putting sprinklers on the house to like protect the building from the fire if it should get over here.
Right.
So that's where I was.
Holy crap and crazy.
They showed up 2 minutes before you know, Smackdown is supposed to start.
So do you guys have a fire line? And for those that don't know, a fire line would be like you cut down an area of trees and you create this pocket or area in between a forest and your property so that the fire hopefully doesn't jump that far across.
We have, I mean, we've done, I think, I mean, you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've got pretty, and this is the first group of guys, that's what they wanted to talk about, was fuels mitigation.
It's been very cleaned up.
Yeah,
sure.
And so I was pointing out to him, like, I think we've got pretty good fuels mitigation here. And of course, part of what we're doing is that we've been going out into the property, harvesting a lot of trees, especially little ones, for all of the things that we build. And so we're dipping into that pool a lot, which is thinning out a lot of the fuel. And then, of course, we had a bunch of people here over the years, and they like to have little campfires. So they start picking up all the little bits of wood. And then we've also built a whole bunch of Hugelkultur beds, which used up bits of wood. And it just kind of goes on and on and on from there. And so I think we're doing a good job of reducing fuels.
Yeah.
On this particular base camp, and I think that there's some of that also going on up at the lab. So you're asking about a fire line, and it's kind of like, yeah, we could do that. What I'd rather do is transition away from conifers, because right now the land is dominantly conifers, as is almost all of the land here. Mm-hmm. And as Sepp Holzer refers to it as a conifer desert, because conifers tend to try to make the land be. I mean, when you kind of leave everything alone, the climax, the end game is all conifers. At least in this area, so it's referred to as the climax community. Yeah, and so I was going to say species, but that's not right. It's going to be multiple species, but all coniferous and whatever can tolerate conifers. And I'd rather move to something that's more of a broadleaf, something that's going to be more of a forest garden or food forest. And so that's going to be dominantly not conifers.
And we actually, in Montana, you wouldn't think it because there's not much broadleaf. But if you go into the old forest, like untouched stuff, it's all broadleaf, or there's a lot of broadleaf.
And the people that lived here 500 years ago, they set the conifers on fire. They would start forest fires to get rid of that stuff, because to them that's a weed. So, fire was like their Roundup. Let's get rid of all of this stuff. This is not what we want here. And then they had all kinds of different kinds of plant communities that they encouraged. And when they would go and harvest, that they would kind of nurture it along at the same time.
Cool.
So
what's the plan? What happens next? You're like not freaking out, or are you freaking out?
I'm not freaking out. Most of the time, like today, like right now, I could smell smoke a little bit this morning, and so we have 2 air cleaners. But I mean, every year we have forest fire season, and it gets smoky around here. I mean, this is what happens when you live in a forested area. When everybody else, and right now I can't exclude myself. Our lands are not managed the way that we want right now, and we want to. It takes time to move towards what we want, but so many lands here are managed the more conventional way, where they're going to grow a lot of trees and then go and harvest, and they're going to go through and do fuels stuff. I mean, fuels is a big word in forestry. In fact, I would guess that maybe even as much as 60% of all the work done within the Forest Service is going to be about fuels in order to prevent forest fires. And so I wish to move in a direction such that like maybe 5 to 7 years from now, that we'll be sitting 80% better than we are right now as far as fuels. And so a lot less conifer trees and a lot more deciduous species.
What happens when you end up with this near monocrop of conifers is you end up with like the pine bark beetle kill, where they just move from one tree to the next and kill a whole mountainside of trees, which makes it a really great place to have a fire. So if we can
absolutely
diversity, then those threats from the emerald ash borer or whatever, all these different things that are going to kill one particular kind of tree won't be as significant. They'll be, oh, now you're on fire. won't be, you know, an issue.
This could be your property.
Well, and the other thing is, Paul was just mentioning, the Wofati is pretty fireproof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's possible that this forest fire is going to test that, but yeah, the design of it. I mean, basically the Ayler structure aspect of it is that it is quite fireproof. It makes sense to me. I mean, when you start studying, I mean, you're saying something about, you know, having a fire break, you know, a big strip. Like if the fire comes this way, then, you know, it's going to have to leap over this 200-foot wide path of no trees and no fuels. And it's like, so when you start studying this now, like what's a ladder fuel? What's going to be, what holds the fire? What carries the fire? You know, all of these kinds of things. Then you look at a Wofati, and it's kind of like, yeah, the Wofati does a great job of protecting the structure itself from fire. And it doesn't give a lot of fuel if the fire tries to burn over the Wofati. And so the Wofati is very safe in a fire.
But I would say I wouldn't want to be in it. I feel like it might be like an oven in there.
I'm sure it would not be an oven in there.
Okay.
But because of the smoke, then I agree that I wouldn't want to be there during a fire.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, having that go over your Wofati while you're in it would be scary as shit.
yeah, you know,
A lot less scary than being in a regular house, but still, that would suck.
Yeah, if the fire came suddenly, yes, I'd want to be in the Wofati rather than outside of it.
There you go.
But you know, yeah, it would be so smoky that I probably wouldn't want to be in that area.
Mostly be worried about smoke or just the general consumption of oxygen. But here's what we've done. Here's what we do every year here, because we live in such a heavily forested area, is that when a forest fire season rolls around, then we close all the windows and doors, and we turn on. We have 2 air cleaners that we run, and they just run 24/7. I want to shut off this browser because I can hear my laptop straining under the load of all of my, you know, having 100 browser windows open and, you know, doing some conferencing. My poor little laptop is like, help me.
So because you have community on your property, so many people on the property, and they're all using up this firewood, you're probably your land is probably there's much less fuels on your land than there would be on neighboring lands, is my guess, especially with a property that size. And so there's another benefit to having community, or a lot of people managing a piece of property rather than one person that goes in. Maybe they bring a crew in. So this is what I typically see on large properties, is that they get a grant or something. It's just one person, but they hire a crew to come in, and they just start cutting all these trees down, put them up in one central area, burn all those trees, and that's it. They gather all the fuel, burn it up when it's not fire season, obviously, so that when a fire does come, those fuels aren't there. But in your community, instead of that, everybody is out utilizing those materials, putting them to use instead of just so they're still gathering all the fuels, but they're putting them to use instead of just putting them in a stack and burning them.
Well, I think the first thing is that you're going to take the wood that is in your zone 1 and zone 2, and you're probably going to work that into Hugelkultur, rocket mass heater, you know, all the different things that has a use for. So then suddenly around in your zone 1, zone 2, there's no fuel there if a forest fire comes to you. And so then, of course, that's going to gradually expand, and then you're going to start taking those trees that are right there on your zone 1, zone 2, and you're going to take those down in order to make them into a Wofati, or something like that. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start planting all kinds of broadleaf things, which are going to make things less desert-like, less dry. Because like a conifer does a great job of hoarding water, whereas most conifers are going to like pull water up and then transpire it out of their leaves. And so then you end up with a lot of morning dew. And then they tend to be generous and share what water they found with the other plants, through root exudate. Whereas conifers are very, very lock it all up and hold it all to myself. And the needles are of a certain shape so that way they hold moisture. I mean, if you look at a needle, it's closer to that of a cactus or a succulent than it is a broad. And it's part of that strategy of like, okay, I want to do the chlorophyll dance, but I want to not give up any water. I'm going to be super greedy in that space.
And they want to get, the big deal for broadleaves, right, is they've got so much shade around them, they're trying to expand as much as possible and capture as much light as possible.
Right. They're going to be far more efficient at capturing sunlight and doing the photosynthesis dance. And at the same time, they're going to protect their water interests by making things much cooler on the ground,
right? Which
is delicious for us.
Yeah.
And it also helps to make it so that way you have, and then because you have far more humidity and far more morning dew, then everything tends to be a little bit greener than if it's strictly a conifer space, especially as you've got other things growing there and stuff like that. It's a major win, but of course around here people are basically trained in how to manage a coniferous forest, and usually it's like one person managing 20,000 acres.
Yeah.
And so then that's got a lot of challenges to it. That's going to be really hard to do. Whereas if you've got one person who's hyper focused on 1 acre, and then at the same time you've got, like, let's suppose 20 people who share 200 acres, I think that you're going to have land that is much better managed, especially when you're focused on fuel woods, on fuels, forest fires.
Absolutely.
Yay!
Yeah, that was getting a little too dark for me. All right, so focusing on community here, what are the lessons learned, or is this really like making you think we got to focus a lot more, or we're probably good, or I'm glad we focused on this before, or you think we didn't focus enough on it, now we need to focus on it more within the community?
On forest fires?
Fire mitigation, yeah.
Fire mitigation. I think that when you travel the permaculture path with or without community, then you're naturally going to be mitigating forest fire risk.
Oh, yeah.
Without even thinking about forest fire risk. I mean, I do think, like in a PDC, you're going to talk about forest fire risk as one of your vectors. And there's a lot of permaculture stuff that's been written about forest fire risk, but I think the more that you travel the path, the more you automatically, accidentally mitigate forest fire risk.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is conifers are basically not permaculture friendly plants generally. And so I'm not saying eliminate conifers, but I'm saying minimize. Let's favor the broadleaves over the conifers.
Well, you definitely, when you get into the property, when in the beginning, like you're saying, you start off by eliminating them, or you're just naturally doing it. Like your junk pole fencing, for example, you're cutting the small pines down, stripping them, and making fencing out of it. And so naturally you're taking those resources out of the picture and putting new, different resources in your example, in your case.
So and then you're going to start with zone 1. And so then then there's the whole argument about, well, if you're going to have a community of 20 people, do you have 20 people under one roof, or do you have 20 people scattered about? And my response to that is both. And that's something I don't think we've talked about in this little community series. I think that some people groove on the idea of being 20 people under one roof, And some people are more like, I want to do my thing over here, and I want to get my community in doses. I want 20% of my life to be with community. Whereas when you're living under one roof, you're thinking like, I want 50% of my life to be community. And in either scenario, you can kind of have a door that you can close and say, okay, yeah, I've had my fill of community for today. I've decided to come into my little space and close the door. Or when you are on your own little plot with your own little hobbit house, like in the background there, then you could be like, I'm going to futz in my garden, and there's a gate over there that kind of draws a line to say my space. And so when I'm gardening, I like solo gardening. Whereas in the community space, it'd be like, when I garden, I like to garden with 5 other people simultaneously. Oh, look at it. What have you got, like a menu that you just pick from all these images willy-nilly? Zone 1, there's zone 2.
This is actually a graphic from Toby Hemingway's Creating Guys Garden course he did with us. Okay. And yeah, so there's all the zones if anybody wants to get kind of an idea of what, in case you don't know what zones are.
Did you get a guy that's gonna, continue with that course?
We're working on it. Yeah, we have. I can't announce anything yet, but yes.
All right. I know I gave you some names.
Yes, you did. You gave me some names. I actually asked, as you can imagine, to find someone. So this is Toby Hemingway's course. This is actually the last course he taught, and you can imagine trying to find someone to take that on is pretty difficult. So anyway, so yes, we have some people lined up that we're working with, and they're looking at it, and we're working on it. But eventually, yes, we will re-release the Creating Guys Garden course, and we get tons of email asking for it, and it's coming, guys. We're working on it.
Okay. All right. So, anything else about fire mitigation stuff? I mean, we could easily fill a dozen hours talking about.
Yes, we could, but I want to do a fire mitigation talk later because we're on the roll of community, and we're trying to. We want to wrap up this series at some point. I think we're on the 4th. I think this is the 4th episode so far on community.
Yeah.
And we're like 2 paragraphs down from your 100-paragraph list.
I think we're a little further along. I was looking at my list. And I think we're making good progress. In fact, we're getting to the point that we're here. The next thing that I bring up on my list.
Yeah, you just ended it where you last left off. Was you were in Missoula in the house with like 5 people in the house, that community, and cut.
Okay. All right. Missoula.
It might not have been Missoula.
Oh, right. The Green Lake place.
Yeah.
I was in actually we went further than that last time because I went beyond the Green Lake place to a community where I did the 540 meals, 540 plates.
Oh, I thought that was the same one. Oh, okay.
So the Green Lake place, that project ended, and then of course I'm serving on that board, density research.
No, we got to the place where you actually started one. It was like your community in Missoula.
That was the Green Lake one. Green Lake one I started.
Oh, okay.
And the one after that is the one where it had a central leader. And then while I was there, I conducted some experiments. And then it's like, basically I was promised the moon to come live there. And they liked the idea of having a permaculture person there. And then when I wanted to start building Hugelkultur beds and putting up the fence to bring in hogs and stuff like that, then they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. And it's like, these are the exact things I asked about before I moved in. And you said I could do that. No, we didn't. We never said that. And so I left. But we did talk last time about how surely you'll remember, I provided 540 plates of food. How many plates of food did I get back?
1, I think. Not even. 2. Okay.
2. I got 2. And so Then there was also the whole thing about, I think I remember mentioning this last week, where some guy kept taking my food after I'm done providing, giving. And I think this is going to be a theme throughout all community stuff.
Yeah.
If you ever give somebody something because you feel generous and you feel like a lovely person, and you're going to just give something to somebody, it seems like no good deed goes unpunished. Now, that's not entirely true, but there's a lot of truth to it. Whenever you give something to somebody because you can, and you're thinking like, I just wanna, I'm just gonna, it seems like that builds serious resentments, and everything goes to shit after that. Now, I recently had somebody on Permies who basically said something along the lines of like, okay, so you own this property. And I think it's like in the thread about Ant Village. And I say, and we rent out an ant plot. Like right now, if somebody shells out $900, they get an ant plot from now until the end of 2018. I don't know what that works out to for rent, but probably something like $50 a month or something. So, but anyway, this person said, well, you own the land, so you could just give that to people, right? You could give it to them if you wanted to. So I think you should do that. I think rather than charging rent. So, of course, what I said was, I heartily encourage you to go buy land and give it away, and, you know, and that's not what I'm doing.
That was in the Deep Roots thread.
Was it the Deep Roots?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
we'll see how it works when you try it. I'm not going to experiment with my property that way.
Yeah. I think we have learned lessons about how you have to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And but I also kind of feel like up to this point in time, for each of the people that have paid rent, I think that I have actually paid more than what I've collected in rent, and that's without consideration for buying the land. Would Fred, now you know the math much better than I do. Is that fair to say?
Just for like maintaining the property and the equipment and
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
I don't think the rent is a good income scheme.
Right. So basically, I have spent more than what I have collected in rent, and that's without considering the purchase of the property.
Well, I also think that has a lot to do with when you start the community, you have grand visions of everybody working together, building all of these things. And so it's worth it to say, I will provide you with these things. Because in the long run, I'm going to get me or the whole community will get much more out of it. And then it turns out maybe that someone doesn't want to do it. And so, or a lot of people don't want to do it, or they don't want to do the community building things. They want to focus on their own piece of property, or maybe they just want to get it far enough and then just sleep for most of the day. So you've all these resources are available to them, but they're not using them collectively to build up things, and it ends up costing more than what it costs to just rent out the property.
I mean, this is a conversation that Fred and Jocelyn and I had recently, is like, should we continue with Ant Village? Because it's like, okay, I thought that what would happen is that a lot of my projects would move forward because we would trade. We would trade, you know, their labor for rent. And then part of the problem is that in hindsight, I was too generous. Mm-hmm. I would waive charges. I would pay part of their rent because I'm, you know, expressing gratitude that they did a neat thing, which arguably was not of direct benefit to me, but it's like, and so.
Well, you wanted to encourage them.
I wish
would encourage them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, all right, well, my projects ended up not moving forward, and it's like it's not their fault. And then so part of it is to look at it and say, did permaculture move forward? Did community move forward? Did, you know, and it's kind of like, I think that there is some of that. There is definitely some stuff that was moved forward, and I think that was part of the plan too. Is that you could see people doing permaculture in a way that was different than what I would have done, and I think I'm doing really good at being really hands off, because I want to see them create things that I would have never thought of. And then we all learn from all the different experiments and all the different people.
And others building community are learning from you. You're sharing a great deal on how the community operates, what fails, what succeeds, and that helps the next person who's building community get that get some more knowledge on possibilities, things that can happen.
So I think we've got some more to talk about with Ant Village and stuff, but I think that comes later. I think for now I want to go through the chronological stuff to get to the point that we can talk about Ant Village.
All right.
But Ant Village, we have in the end we decided we're going to continue with it. It does do a good thing. It does do a lovely thing, and the upsides outweigh the downside. I'm going, definitely financially, I'm going into the hole supporting Ant Village, and moving forward with that. But I think that that's part of my mission is to incubate the future of permaculture, and I think I like to think that I wish, I'm going to just say I wish, a fantasy. This is a fantasy, Brent, and that is that 10 years from now, the people that are here now, several of them will become the world's leading experts in permaculture. And then this site will then be a maybe not the leading site, but a site that is leading, that is pushing forward what is permaculture.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I want to see happen. And I'm gonna be hard pressed to draw experts in, so I'm gonna grow my own.
Yeah.
Is the idea.
Yep.
And that's the big mission. Of course, I would love to get to the point where I'm not having to financially subsidize all of this stuff, because I'm old and tired and fat. I'm old and fat and tired.
Sue,
I want to sit around and be obese all day. I don't want to be trying to come up with a bunch of money.
You don't want to be 80 and still, yeah, okay. Sue comes in or comments, I heard a wise comment once to a group of people. This is our local Kiwi, Sue is. You have come here with empty hands and you will leave with your arms filled with that for which you have worked. Great comment. All right. So we will talk about Ant Village when we get to it, but where are we at now?
Okay, so I am east. I'm living on property that is east of Seattle, and
so you went from Missoula back to
no. Green Lake is in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
I left that community. Then I moved to a community that has a central leader that is east of Seattle.
Yep.
On acreage, and I was told I can do all my permaculture stuff there. And then after I moved in, I was told I can't do any of my permaculture stuff there. I did the 540 plates of food thing, a few other experiments, and then it's like I need to leave here because I got to do all my permaculture stuff, and I can't do it here. In fact, that's about the time when I met Sepp Holzer. So this must have been the spring of 2009. And Sepp was very interested to hear about my property and my projects. And I told him, I just moved on to a spot and I'm trying to get started, but I'm struggling to get permission to do anything. And he said, get out now! And I think he was right. That's the right thing. Interesting thing is that, and it definitely bears towards community from a chronological perspective, is that there was a guy that I knew that was not far away from this place. I'm going to call him Bob. Bob with one O. And so Bob had a property that he lived on, and it was a lovely place. And Bob found another property that was very close to his property that had 2 houses on it. I think it's 3 houses on it. And they weren't in the best of shape, but he thought he's going to build a permaculture community. So he found a dozen people that were bonkers about permaculture to move onto this property and start turning it into permaculture paradise. The community contacted me and said, we're angry with Bob, and we want you, Paul, to come in and mediate between us and Bob. Bob is not doing what we want Bob to do. And so I told these people, and I don't know, there's like 4 people that were sent as like representatives of the rest of the group to come talk to me. And I listened to what they had to say. And I also had, Bob had pulled me aside a couple of times and said, oh, you won't believe what these people are doing. And so I kind of ended up pretty savvy about both ends as I'm being approached and asked to mediate. And I said, you know what, if you ask me to mediate, all I'm going to do based on what I know so far is to side with Bob, because Bob bought the land. Bob has done like all the work. The community's really not doing anything but just partying there.
Yeah.
And you don't have a garden. You're not growing anything. Bob is planting stuff on your property. He's fixing everything. And you guys are like bringing up tenant law to Bob. And it's like, you knew it was a shithole when you moved in. And you're paying like half the rent of what he could get to rent that place out. Because he thought he's building a permaculture paradise, and you guys are nothing but a bunch of fucking whiners. You're not doing anything. It's just a place for cheap rent.
Yeah.
And then you're like they were threatening Bob, like, we don't have to pay the rent because according to the laws, as long as there's mold on this wall, then we don't have to pay the rent. So you have to clean all this stuff. You have to repair all these things. And they had a list of stuff for him to do. So Bob evicted everybody. Just kicked them all out. Just figured he had a bad batch.
I'll review your list. You guys got to go, and then I'll review the list.
So then he brought in a new batch and made it really, really clear. Hey, I know this place isn't up to code or anything, but if I want to create a permaculture paradise. Because the thing is on this particular piece of property, he taught a PDC, and he had a wonderful time. It was a great PDC. The people were utterly fantastic. And it's like, man, I want to do this so much more. And Bob had a long, rich history of attending PDCs because they're so awesome and lovely. Yeah. And so he's trying to create a permaculture paradise, and he's making huge sacrifices to try and make that happen. And he's working his ass off. But it turns out that people love to utter the word permaculture paradise, but when it comes right down to the part where you work, then they're kind of like, I'm going to sit in this lovely chair and watch as you do all the work. And I'm glad to drink the benefit of your work, but I don't want to actually like touch dirt or anything. So in the meantime, they liked having the extremely cheap rent, and they continued going to their jobs, which now they've got extra income because they've got extremely cheap rent in an area that has extremely high rent. And they just continue about their regular day-to-day business of jobs and party on the weekends and going on trips and living life. but you know, not building a permaculture paradise. That's for somebody else. That's the thing that you say that you want when you want to get into the cheap rent situation. So Bob brought in a second batch. Bob sent the second batch away also. And there was a point in time where Bob didn't know what to do, so he just kept the place empty. The last time I was there, the place was empty.
Yeah.
So there you go, a little story about community and people that are bonkers about permaculture. Now, I do think that I've talked to a lot of permaculture leaders, and I think that in your world, Josiah, of permaculture, it's probably a little bit different. But I think for a lot of the permaculture world, people that are interested in permaculture are interested in alternatives and tend to be different. And that, which is a euphemism for, and it's like, and this is part of the thing I covered in my keynote at PV1, and that was that I've got a website about software engineering that's much larger. We have a problem like once every couple of months that we need to deal with. And so I've got this smaller website about permaculture, but we have a problem like every other day, and that we need like something. And so it's kind of like, basically, if you do the math, you end up with something like, like 30 to 100 times more drama per person with permaculture.
Well, it's definitely much more, permaculture is definitely much more revolved around people's lives, their actual living, recreational and work, if you're trying to do it as a job as well. But it's much more involved on the life scale than where with software engineering, I could be a software engineer and then go home and not be a software engineer.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So for whatever reason, and it's like, I think that would be a worthwhile exploration to try and find out why. Why is it this way? Now in my PV1 thing, I talk about trying to deal with corporate trolls, then of course, natural trolls. Then there's going to be, people that are kind of like, they've come up with a recipe for permaculture for themselves, and so they point to anybody else's permaculture recipe and say, that's not permaculture. So we've got a lot of that. So there's the hate in the name of love crowd. So, but I want to embrace the story of Bob.
Okay.
Bob's a central leader, and the stuff he kept ending up with wasn't going to work. And so Bob is struggling to find out, how do you develop a system where everything ends up working out? So part of it is, I think that's where Ant Village is really great. It's kind of like, if somebody shows up on a plot of bare land and they end up doing nothing, then they're going to get frustrated and leave, because no one's bringing them food. Nothing else. They're going to get really hungry. And winter comes and they're going to get really cold. And I think we've had quite a few people who've come here and tried to do the Ant Village thing, and they've ended up leaving because it turned out that they weren't the ant that they thought, which is totally cool. I don't think anybody's super ant. I don't think super ant exists. But I do think that there's a little bit of grasshopper in everybody, and it's like, how much? What's your ratio? And can you pull it off? And I think that for a lot of people, it's like their ideas for what they want to build is big, 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 and then but their level of work to be able to meet what they're thinking is not up for that.
Yeah.
Most of the people that have come to the conclusion of like, this is not for me. Now, granted, I think we've got a lot of people who also gone, totally works. I made myself a lovely house. I didn't stay particularly warm last winter, but I'm fixing that. So this next winter, I'm going to be plenty warm, etc. But for the people that have left, and most of them have left very gracefully. They're like, I came.
Turns out it's not my lifestyle.
I was hungry, you know, and so then they learned a lot about themselves, and they went on down the road. I think we've had only one person who came and it didn't work out, and that one person felt that that was my fault, that I need to change all the rules, that I need to provide more, that I need to do a bunch of stuff. I need to change the deal. I need that they insisted. You know what I think? I think I'm talking into the future again. And we finish our chronological story. So put that on hold.
Real quick, Sue has a question. Sue says, why do you think so many of the permaculture leaders seem to be at odds with each other? Oh boy.
I think podcast 111, you know, so I've got a bunch of podcasts. Podcast 111, I think we've brought it up. I think I've referred back to it more than 100 times. But I think the reason why permaculture, and podcast 111 is, why are so many of our permaculture leaders such dicks? And the short answer is because the rest of us make them that way. We have, rather than speaking to somebody like let's say that we've got a permaculture enthusiast named Betty, and Betty goes to talk to Bob, and you know, Bob's a leader of sorts, not you know, global leader, but you know, Bob's done some stuff. Bob's taught several PDCs. I think it's fair to refer to him as a regional leader, and Bob's for the most part a great guy. So Betty goes to talk to Bob and looks at what Bob has done, and Betty, rather than saying, you know what, I would really love to learn more about what you've done and your philosophies, and can you tell me some things? Can I buy you dinner? Can I set up an event and hear you talk about, you know, whatever? So instead of that path, most people, far too many people, say, Bob, you're a dumb fuck. You're a shithead and a horrible person. You know, how dare you fuck with people's lives like that? And I've seen your property. It's a fucking shithole, Bob. You should burn it to the ground, dick cheese. And so, less than kind. Not the kind of, and this same person, Betty, might also be a powerful advocate of, you should always love everybody unconditionally. And so, and then when Betty leaves Bob, like, because the conversation is over, she will probably utter the word namaste. Which for the longest time I thought meant, I'll fuck up your shit tomorrow. But it turns out it actually means I bow to the divine in you, which I think people like Betty don't know. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
So the thing is that when a person like Bob is subjected to such a parade of hostility, then what's going to come of that? Is Bob going to become more of a dick, like a harsher person? Is Bob going to start having more rules and being stricter and being less of a lovely, charming person? Or more likely, is Bob going to say, I don't need this shit. Fuck permaculture. I'm going to just sell this property. I used to want to have a lovely permaculture paradise community.
Yeah.
Now I just want some peace. I'm wore out. I'm sick of all the hate. There's so much hate that comes when you have permaculture. Now, in your world, Josiah, I think that your people, which are probably dominantly coming from Jack Spirko's crowd, I don't think that they're that way so much.
Our people are either more on the conservative side, Republican conservative, or anarchist, or libertarian, instead of the more left-leaning liberal, Democrat, and whatever else you call. Anyway, I'm apolitical myself, but I find that most people on our side or our community they definitely see the benefit of working together, but they want to choose who they work together with, and that is because they have a very independent mindset where it's like, as long as you're not fucking with me, I won't fuck with you, and I'm gonna mind my own business. Kind of, I think more on that instead of, hey, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing it that way, or I'm gonna, report you, or any of that kind of crap. You don't get that. You get a lot of, I don't agree with what you're doing, so I'm just gonna leave it alone, leave you alone, or keep you out of my life.
I'm not sure if I mentioned this. So this is our number 4 in the series about community, but I wrote an essay a while ago, and it was about all of human history, and 90% of human psychology can fit into a single sentence. And I wrote it down here. Most people need to hear their own opinion from all other people, and are frustrated that they don't have the might to make it right.
Uh-huh.
So that's
we talked about this
sentence. And now you're just talking about how, like, the people that lived in Bob's community, then they needed Bob to say whatever they wanted to hear. Like, Bob is going to agree to be more of a servant, and that they don't have to pay rent, and so whatever it is that they want, Bob will go along with it, and just eat it, and I don't know, serve them blueberry muffins on Sunday morning. And then when Bob does not do as he is told, then these people start looking for ways to do might makes right. How can we force Bob to do what we tell him to do? How do we force him to be our slave? And of course, those same people would talk about how they would never support slavery, except of course when they do.
A great deal of our peeps are much more of the their whole lifestyle revolves around being prepared, and so that means doing things so that you don't rely on other people too much. Now, it's nice to be in a community where people are providing you with lots of things. This is where the fallacy comes in sometimes with this mindset of, I'm just going to make sure my life is done, and I'm going to build my life so that I'm self-reliant. I don't rely on any other person. I think that's good. However, I think that's good to a point. When you start, I think you should set yourself up that way, and it's a good mindset to have. However, you also need to understand that a lot more can be accomplished when you work with others, or others are providing, or you're coordinating so that you're specifically focused on a certain thing while someone else is specifically focused on another, and you combined efforts and get to share in each other's dedicated focus to these one individual things or a couple things, rather than trying to spread your mind out across many different things and the labor that's involved with doing all these different things at once. So there is that side of it. But what's really nice about growing with this mindset, or having the mindset of self-reliance, is that when you start looking at expanding and working with others, you're going to also be looking for those people that were self-reliant and have built that kind of lifestyle. And I don't know, I guess the communication's just a lot easier. I don't know what the...
I want to, I feel like I don't have enough people that hate me, so I'm going to say something that's going to piss off your audience.
All right.
Yeah, sorry. And that is that while I do believe that there'll be less of this issue with your audience, they are not immune to this problem. And I've seen people that would probably be within your audience that would be like, okay, I hereby command you, Bob, to, I'm living independently and you're my neighbor, and I don't like what you're doing with your poop. I see what you're doing over there, and I hereby command you to do it differently. And then Bob might say, like, I think the way I'm doing it is better than the way that you're doing it. And then I can see this fictional person that I've made up that I haven't given a name to yet saying, do you have a gun? No. It turns out I have mini guns. Here's one right here. Okay? Now the conversation changed. You're going to do as I say, because I do have the mic to make it right.
You do see that, I wouldn't say in my community or first of all, I don't want to speak for my community, and it's growing all the time. So there's all kinds of people coming in.
And I'm not saying it's a universal truth, but I'm saying that is a scenario that, let's just pretend for a moment it's only 4% of your community.
Right.
Okay. But it's only probably 15% of my community that's going to end that came and lived at Bob's place.
They won't come with the gun. I find in the more left-leaning side, they won't come with the gun themselves. What they'll do is come with someone else's gun.
That's true.
So they will say, I don't like guns or I don't want guns, but I definitely like those guys to have guns because I get to tell them to come fuck with you.
Yeah,
I get to just sit back and watch.
And because I'm struggling with having the mic to make it right, those guys won't come if I tell them the truth. So I'm going to go tell them whatever I think will get them to get off their butts and bring their guns over and point them at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of this. So basically the thing is what I'm trying to say is if we want community to work, we have to recognize that there's this element within ourselves that says, I want to do the whole might makes right thing. And we've got to have a way of being able to recognize that within ourselves and curb that and be looking at for the community rather than like, I'm going to force everybody else to do what I say.
Well, I think that following the non-aggression principle is probably that's the biggest value to me. It's what I follow. And I highly respect people that also follow the non-aggression principle. And that means that I will not fuck with you if you don't fuck with me. Like, that's basically what it comes down to. Don't hurt me, and I won't hurt you unless you hurt me.
So I think that there's a lot of value there, and I kind of wonder if some people are being aggressive and yet are still certain that they're following the non-aggression principle.
Yeah, and you see that because people, if you really follow the non-aggression principle, you would not be calling other people to bring guns for you. Right. It's not only you, it's encouraging others or voting for others or whatever that plan to do these kind of things that want to bring the aggression.
Yeah.
You don't encourage aggression.
And so I think that the important thing is that, we have to come up with solutions in this space in order for community to last. And I think getting community to last is like the top goal in here, because especially when we're talking about permaculture community, these are perennial things. These are things where it's like you get the real benefit 5, 10, 15 years later. Yeah. And it's like, so you want to do the things, you want to plant those seeds and then receive that benefit. But if you've got hostility or other people that are telling you how you have to live your life or what to think, and it's amazing It's amazing how people can seem so sweet and lovely and nice until you say a thing that is not the thing that they agree with. And then they insist, you have to think the thoughts I tell you to think now. And if you don't, I'm going to find might to make it right.
Yeah.
And hence all of human history and 90% of human psychology.
Yep, I agree.
I started a little late. How about if we get to the point where I finish my story up to the point of arriving to this property? Because
that sounds good. All right, let's do that.
All right. I started a search for my own land. And I think in previous podcasts outside of this series, we've talked about my philosophies on residual income stream and some of the things that I did to get the money to get this land. And for a while, I tried to find a 15-year lease deal. I tried to find a place where I could do owner financed. And then finally, I just thought, fuck it, I need to make enough money so I can buy land outright. We could call it hard work mixed in with a lot of good luck, which good luck comes from hard work. Having lovely relationships with lovely people who love me. It's lovely to be loved. And just a lot of different things. But I mentioned earlier how I wanted to do 3 times more than SEP, and I realized I could only do 80% of what SEP had accomplished, and so I needed to move on. And now I want to do 10 times more than SEP. I've got so much stuff I wish to accomplish, and there's no way. I mean, if I start right now, and let's pretend I don't have Fred, I don't have Jocelyn, it's just me here. I doubt in my lifetime I could get 40% of what SEP's accomplished in his life.
Especially if you're starting right now. I mean, how long has SEP been at it?
Since he was 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And he's not exactly in his 20s.
And he's not dead yet either. He's still doing stuff. So, there's like so much I want to get done, and so it's kind of like, all right, so my job is not to go out and put the mulch down. My job is to find a way to see to it that 10 times more stuff, 10 SEP units of stuff has been done here before I die. And so how do I do that? How do I improve our forward velocity? I spent 3.5 years searching for land. And of course, for the first 1.5 years or so, the search was for a place where I could have a lease, a 15-year lease, and I got nowhere. And then I did probably another 1.5 years of searching for land where it could be owner financed. And then the last few months, it was like, I'm just going to work hard and then buy land, and that's so. Managed to buy the lab, and then through a lot of luck and loveliness from our jetpack people, bought this property, which is very close to the lab. And the lab is raw land, and base camp has a shitty little double wide, and well, I shouldn't say it's shitty. As double wides go, it's a nice double wide. It's very small, but it has a shop. And it has water. We have the ability to have internet. We have, a septic system. There's a well. All the normal things that you would expect on a rural property.
So normal things now.
Oh, right. It's been enhanced. It's been awesomeified a little bit. I mean, let's be clear. We're still under construction. I mean, it's very much under construction.
Yeah.
In fact, there's not a lot of things where we could say that is 100% complete.
Now, before we get into the properties, that's going to be in the next show, right? We wanted to get to the point where you got to the property. All right.
So I think we're there now. I think I finally got through all of that. I want to say one thing more that's about here, and that
Okay.
is that we've been here now for over 4 years. We would be 7 times further along if people had kept their word. For all the day-to-day, this and that and the other thing that goes and comes, and if people were honest, if they were just simply people of integrity, then we would be 7 times further along than we are now. And so there's been an ocean of painful lessons to get to where we are. And at the top of the heap is people telling me what I need to think and what I need to do and what I need to say, commanding me under threat.
Yeah.
A parade of that. Now, Josiah, you were here for several weeks. You witnessed it.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to think that those kind of things would happen. It just sucks that it
And
exists.
it's like the business deals that we make are so simple, or the arrangements, or whatever. These things are all so ridiculously simple. And people, I would say that 15% of the people that come through are good to their word. If they say they're going to do ABC, they usually do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
It's like, it's delicious working with them.
So is there a way to quickly weed out those that don't?
85% say that they'll do ABC. And I think that maybe out of those, maybe 30% do A.
And so what do you do? What do you do with those people?
And then they lose their shit. It's all my fault. They blame me thoroughly and completely. And drama. And it's like, and I think you've seen me working my ass off to try to mitigate drama, to try and solve these crazy problems that are brought to me. And I think I'm pretty patient with these folks to try and get everything to work out. But
and that might be where the issues are and why it goes so far, is that you're so patient and nice.
True. I think there's some truth to that.
I mean, you see, so let's say you have one small thing, it's A, B, and C to get done, and they get A done. And you're like, okay, well, it wasn't that big of a project or big of a deal, so I'll give you another shot at some other project. And then that happens, and they get A and B done for the next project, but not C. What do you do at that point? Do you say, okay, we'll continue it and just see how it goes? Or do you say, this ain't working out, goodbye, go?
I think it's never that simple.
Yeah.
And it's like every single case by case, it depends.
And the people are different.
Oh yeah, here Fred takes over most of this for me now, so I don't have to suffer this as much. And Fred's a lovely person, whereas I'm a dick. Go ahead, Fred.
Sometimes it's well, so and so is the best person that we have to do this particular job.
So we'll forgive.
So that's what we're gonna do.
Right.
Yeah, it might not be, the best person to do the job. Just we have limited choices. We're a rural project, and it's hard to get people to come here that want to do good work.
I think that the moral of the story is going to be exactly what I said before I arrived on this land. In a podcast, I said 95% of the people that come to live here forever will leave for one story or another. But it's the story that the mission isn't about those 95%. It's about the 5% that stay. And it's about, like, let's bring in, if we brought in 100 people and 95 left and we got 5 left, we're doing fucking awesome. Yeah. Let's bring in another 100 and another 100 and another 100. And each story is going to be different. I think that Ant Village is great for so many people because they have a lot of independence. And they can come onto the land and learn about themselves. And I think a lot of the ants have learned that they're great at this, that they are self-sufficient to a degree.
Yeah.
But they're on the path, and that if they keep at it, they will get to the point that they're entirely self-sufficient. And I think some people were sure that they were self-sufficient, and then they got here, and then after 2 months, they kind of thought, they looked back at what they had and they thought, I am not going to get through the winter. Yep. And so then they're like, I've decided to go for a while. I'll be right back. But I'm going to go to where my mom is for reasons.
Yeah. And well, it's their safety net. And I think it's important to build your own safety nets, but not necessarily build safety nets for others or expect others to build safety nets for you.
I think in community, there's a lot to be said for like a community safety net, community as a safety net of sorts. Yeah. But I also kind of think that there's a good point for the community to say, you're making holes in our safety net. and I think maybe you got to go.
Which is also why I say it's important to create your own safety nets, so that that person that is fucking up shit, it's easier for them to get kicked out of the community, and it's not as hard on everybody else to kick them out because you know that they have something to rely on.
Well, I think the design of Ant Village is also something where it's kind of like it's not that people will kick you out; it's that you will self-prune.
Yeah.
Because you go out there and you start to build things, and if you try to build things just on your own, maybe you're going to find out that you're not as good at building things as others. But another thing you do is work a deal with some of the other ants. I'll help you build things, in which case you learn some stuff, if you'll help me. And then you've got somebody coming and helping you. And I think there's been a lot of that at Ant Village, where somebody's like going and helping another ant and then getting a bunch of help in return, and then they're flourishing. And so that kind of community symbiotic relationship is a good one.
Especially if you're doing some kind of exchange programs where you're helping people with small things that you can help with, and then when you're ready to do something big, then you ask for that help back in return in mass. Right, so you get everybody that you've helped out to get together at one time and do something big.
Now, of course, I talked about the 540 meals thing, where I provided 540 plates of food and I got 2 back. Mm-hmm. But I'd have to say that up at Ant Village, if somebody provided, 400 pounds of help to others, I would guess that they probably did indeed get 400 pounds of help back.
Awesome.
I think people were pretty awesome about
helping each other.
Great. And the longer they're there, the more they'll recognize others that aren't going to be good for the community, or they'll see people going down, as they go through this experience of having someone terrible in the community. The next time that happens, or another person like that shows up, they'll identify it much quicker, and that person will be pruned out quicker.
Yeah, I think that if a person doesn't keep their word and they're lacking some skills, then I think that person will self-prune, and then it's just a question of, are they going to self-prune gracefully? Right. And so most of the time, yes, they're going to self-prune gracefully. One time so far, not gracefully at all, and which is unfortunate, but. I think another scenario is that we have seen one person show up who was pretty self-propelled and didn't need a lot of help. But I think that person also did get some help, and it turned out there were some things that this person was weaker at than they thought, and in time would get more help. So. But I do think that, there are some people that I know where they could show up and they could probably get a small structure built and a fence put up and garden systems all put in all within 3 weeks, because they're very industrious.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of feel like everybody that's here now is not an expert at roundwood timber framing or construction kind of stuff. Nor are they an expert at all of the other things. So a lot of this has been a learning experience for them, and so then it takes time.
There's also conquering the fear of trying something that you are not an expert at.
So you're talking about permaculture boot camp.
All right. So next week we will continue the conversation and dive into setting up the ant village and how all that came to be. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. tv.permaethos.com. You can watch all the previous episodes or register to... no, you can't. You can't register to sign up. If you are a customer of Patreon for Paul Wheaton or whatever else, or if you're a customer of Permaethos, you will get an invitation to join live and to be able to put in your comments and ask questions, stuff like that. Head over to tv.permaethos.com to learn more, and have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Toodles.
See ya.